Good morning and welcome to EduCurious. We have a very special guest on our show today, one of my coworkers and teacher friends, Becky Brown. Good morning, Becky. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
I'm so glad you're joining us this morning. And Becky is an ELA teacher and has worked at my school for a while. So I've got lots of questions about that subject area, but also how education's changed over the years. So good morning, Becky, and let's get started. I want to hear about your story. How did you get to be in your role? What transpired over the years?
So I started my career in Virginia, where I'm from. And I taught fourth grade at a little tiny school in Spotsylvania County and had a typical first year teacher experience, made some mistakes. I still keep in contact with about 5 of the kids, so that's pretty special. We moved down here to Florida in 2000, and I started working in Davenport and taught fourth grade again. And that was a culture shock from Virginia because the population was very diverse. And then we moved to Lake Wales, and I taught for 14 years at Polk Avenue, third and fourth grade. And my children grew up in that school. It was a really great experience to be able to be there with them, to be a teacher there while they were there. And then in 2016, I arrived at the shores of Crooked Lake under the amazing Dr. Damian Moses. And I've taught 6th grade reading ever since. Occasionally I'll get a 7th or 8th grade thrown in there too, but primarily it's 6th grade.
How do you get your kids to love reading? You've got all abilities coming in, some great readers, some struggling readers, but you somehow get them to, you hook them, you get them to like it. What's your secret?
I think because I love reading so much, and it oozes out. And it oozes out in the most bizarre way. Some of them, they just, oh, okay, teacher pleaser people, okay. And there was this one boy who's now in high school, and I will never forget him. We were doing an article on the sinking of the Indianapolis. And all of a sudden, this kid who had never really paid attention before, and he sometimes was a little naughty in class, all of a sudden he messages me on Schoology and says, I noticed that there was a book about this topic. If I give you the money, could you order it for me? And I was, oh, of course I will. I ordered it. He read it. We talked about it. I mean, I will never forget it. And then there's some other kids who will read a book that's a series in class, and they'll say, Mrs. Brown, this is the first chapter book I've ever read by myself, like from start to finish. And then they'll say, are there more? Yes, there are. And maybe they don't get through the second book, but at least they start it. And so I don't know. I think it's just, I try and give a variety of different topics and things that I'm excited about. And when I get excited about, I see some of them kind of perk up a little bit, like, I'm not going to let her know that I like that, but I do.
And personally, what do you love so much about reading?
When I read these books, like the book I'm reading right now is on Hedy Lamarr, who was a fascinating person. I learned stuff. And even, if I'm reading a romance or something, there's a little tidbit in there that I didn't know. And maybe that'll springboard something else that I look up. I'm constantly looking stuff up. I would be a great research librarian. So maybe in my next life, I don't know. But I think I've always loved reading because I've always felt that I'm something exciting is happening to me or my friends who are the characters in the book. So I live vicariously through them.
Tell me a little bit about some of the fundamentals of building a foundation to become a fluent reader or a good reader or a reader that is able to understand the content.
Well, first of all, I think you just need to have books in front of you at every stage of your life. You need to have someone who is dedicated to reading to you, putting these books in front of you, talking to you about the books, making it important. I remember when my kids were, at that developing stage, and the teacher would send home, a reading log, and they would say, you need to read for 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, yes, yes, yes. I get to read with my kids. And my younger son had some difficulties with reading. And that 20 minutes was the longest 20 minutes of my life. It was, because he would say, look at the blue fish. Oh, does the blue fish have any friends? I wonder where he's going for dinner. Okay, let's get back to the reading, because we would spend 20 minutes on one page, and I'm goal oriented. I wanted to get through this book. And so I understand parents' struggles with being committed to their child to read, because not everybody picks it up easily. And so I think that made me a better teacher, a more understanding teacher when it comes to the difficulties in reading. A little more patient, I guess. I also really feel like you need to have a quiet place to read, so you can really focus on what you're reading and to really process it. So many of the kids will say, well, I read better when there's music going, or, other stuff going on. The quiet, I can't focus. And I appreciate that. I don't understand it, because I am not that way, but I appreciate it. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I really feel like this is the way we're gonna do this in class.
So, who read to you when you were growing up?
My mom.
So, having some of the reading memories throughout your life is also a special way to connect with people.
Yes. I also remember read alouds when I was in school,
Mm-hmm.
particularly like second, third, fourth grade, and sixth grade. My sixth grade teacher, ironically, is one of the main reasons why I'm a teacher.
Tell me a little bit more about that teacher.
Her name is Eileen Smith. And back then we had sixth grade in elementary school. And she was the language arts, social studies part of it. And I remember how she made me feel. And I know that's cliche, because that's what everybody on the posters and everything says. I always remember that she made me feel like I was okay. Whatever I said, whatever came out of my mouth, it was okay. I even remember it was okay that my desk was a mess, because we kept everything under the seat in our desk. And occasionally she would say, okay, Becky, how about we, take all this stuff out and organize it a little bit. And it was okay. I was never embarrassed. It was never a gotcha or anything, but I remember how she made me feel. I also remember her outfits. I think she made some of her dresses, and one in particular was a sleeveless dress that had paper clips on it. And I thought, that is the perfect dress for a teacher. And I remember that all these years later. And I'm not someone who pays attention to fashion or anything like that, but I just remember thinking, that is the perfect dress for a teacher, is this paperclip dress. She was very put together, very put together. But I think she allowed me not to be put together, and it was okay.
So she allowed you to be yourself and give you a safe space. And I
Oh, yeah.
noticed that you impart that in your classroom with the safe space and the structure and the order. Tell me a little bit about how you structure your classroom. You have great classroom management, you build incredible relationships with all of the kids, even and mostly actually a lot of the kids that traditionally might not have a good system in place and maybe act a fool in another class, they fall in line in your class. Tell me how you do that.
I don't have like a clear cut answer for that because every kid is different, and I really, really try and reach every single one. And I know that's impossible, but I really try. Um, I try to make a connection with every single one because I keep in the back of my head, this is somebody's kid. This is somebody's future. This is my future. And how would I want someone to treat my child? How would I want to be treated in this situation? I always try to just pull it out of my core, the patience, the understanding, the empathy, all of that. I wouldn't be able to function in chaos. I wouldn't be able to function. And they come into my room, and within 2 minutes, they're working. And I'll hear student or other teachers say, oh, this one did this or that one did that. And I'm like, they didn't today in my room. Now, not every day is perfect, obviously, but the students have told me that they like the calm, they like the quiet, they can focus, they can think. But other than that, I really do try and make connections. And there's one in particular that is a frequent flyer in the office currently. And for some reason, they have connected with me, and it's okay. And I don't know if it's from siblings that I've had or if it's just they know that it's a safe place or it's okay in that room.
So stopping to make those connections or taking the time to attempt to reach all the kids does pay off. I'm seeing that on my end from where I am.
Well, one thing that I've noticed, and it's not even in the classroom, it's in the hall. I always try to plaster the biggest smile on my face and say good morning. Try if I notice that one of the girls has changed her hair, I try and notice that and say, oh, I like your hair. Braces are a tricky one because they try and hide them. I had braces, I understand. So just very quietly, I'll say, oh, I see you got braces. They look really good. And, you get that. And I said, does your mouth hurt? I said, okay. All right. That kind of thing. I try in the hallway because they walk in the door and you can just see they, gotta, go to what class? I don't know. And so I just plaster a smile on my face and good morning. And most of them will smile back and tell me good morning. They also know when they walk in that door downstairs, they know, oh, they're looking, I got to tuck in my shirt. I got to do all that. So I guess being present, being consistent, that's the other thing too. The kids know, they know if you one day don't follow the rule that you usually do, they pounce on it and then you've lost them. You have to do the same thing every single time. And you have to remember what you did every single time because they're so smart. They're so smart. I think another thing too, and I'm rambling, but they need to feel heard and valued. You have to listen to them and hear what they're saying and what they're not saying. Because a lot of times the quiet ones will tell you their whole life story if you just listen. And sometimes they don't like say it, you just watch them. And anyway, I think those are the ones that I try the hardest with, the ones that skate by, that nobody talks to them because they don't cause a problem. They're not top in the class. They're not the bottom. They're kind of skating in the middle. And that's who I was. I was the quiet one. I never said anything. Of course, every time I did, I got in trouble, but but I was one of those quiet ones that I didn't want the teacher to notice me, because then I would have to talk out loud and maybe I would make a mistake, and how devastating that would be.
Speaking of speaking out loud, a lot of anxiety is around reading out loud in classrooms. I've talked to adults before that said, oh my gosh, my most embarrassing moment in middle school or elementary school was when I had to read out loud. It was popcorn reading.
So occasionally I will have them read out loud. I will ask for volunteers first, and I always reward them every single time they read out loud. I don't care if you're a level 5 or you're level 1. I will reward you every single time for reading out loud. And right at first, nobody wants to do it. Nobody's going to raise their hand to volunteer to read out loud. And then I'll pick somebody, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'll pick on somebody to volunteer voluntold to read, and it'll go really well. Like, oh, yay, I got a kid that'll actually do it. Then I'll get a kid that is like, and I move on. Like, I'm not gonna do that. I also reward kids who help struggling readers. So if I pick on a kid, or a kid volunteers that is just not fluent in reading out loud, the kid sitting next to them, they whisper the word to them, I'll reward them, because that's wonderful. You're not going to sit there and let the kid struggle. You're going to help them out. Absolutely. And sometimes the class will do it. And I think they've been trained to do that.
So over the years, you've probably had different groups of kids throughout your classes as you've done different ages and grade levels. What are some tips and techniques that have been tried and true in teaching reading in particular?
Consistency, patience.
Does it get easier every year to refine and fine tune things, or is it a complete new world every year?
I wouldn't say it's a complete new world every year, but it's enough different that you can't do the exact same thing and get the exact same results. You have to fine tune. This particular group of students, you have to be observant every minute, because they're very, very smart and very capable of doing many things at one time. And so I have to stay on top of that. I think it is more challenging to teach reading right now because there are so many other outlets for them that they don't want to commit to reading. And we have audiobooks, which are wonderful. And of course, you have all of the social media that pull their attention for, I don't even know how long the videos are, 10, 15 minutes max. And so to sit and read for an hour is torture. So I think it's gotten more difficult to teach reading, to get them engaged start to finish.
How do you feel like your college education prepared you to teach, or did you learn just as you went and you got your feet in the classroom? Like, what do you recommend a beginning teacher to read or do, or just go for it?
The biggest lesson that I learned in college was in an assessment class, and on how to give a test, how to administer a test, how to grade a test. The biggest lesson that I still remember was, if you give an assessment and every single kid gets a question wrong, then you need to throw the question out. The other lesson was, if no one got a 100, then that's on the teacher. Because if you taught it well enough, there should have been a 100. And so you need to curve it so that the highest grade gets a 100. I think my biggest, I think I learned more on my feet than I did in college, because they tell you all this stuff for a fictional classroom that doesn't exist. And so when you get in the classroom, you're like, wait a second, this kid isn't supposed to do this. They're supposed to answer this way, or they're supposed to do this. And so when you get in there, you have to figure it out. But I think the one major thing I would say to first year teachers is to watch the teachers around you. Ask questions. You can tell right away from the kids, from the administration, from just observing who the good teachers are, who the effective teachers are, who the teachers are that other people go to for advice, for questions, for whatever. Watch those teachers, see what they do. And what works for me is not going to necessarily work for you, but you can springboard off of something that I do or something that I don't do. Because just like you need to watch the good teachers, you need to watch the teachers that are not effective. But definitely watch other teachers. That's something that I'm noticing. The younger teachers, the newer teachers, some of them are watching and some of them are not.
What have been some of your biggest challenges over the years?
Balance between my personal life and school. When my kids were growing up, it was a constant tug. I need to do this for school, but I also need to be a mom. And whenever a teacher will say to me, oh my gosh, we have this after school thing, but my kid has this, I say, be a mom. Or they will say, I need to be out of school because of this with my kid. I feel so guilty. Don't. These are your kids. This is your family. Sometimes I need somebody to say that to me. I have a perfectionism problem. And if I don't get the result that I want, I feel defeated. Even though I, got the kid from point A to point B, I don't feel like I was a success because the goal was get him to Z. I've worked on that. I've gotten a lot better. COVID was a big challenge because I don't feel like that was an effective time period in education. I think it changed the way people view education forever. School is now optional. Attendance is optional. I have a huge attendance issue with my students. It used to be where people would schedule their lives around the school calendar. Sure, you're going to have an occasional orthodontist appointment or a doctor appointment pop up or something like that. But now families are scheduling vacations, and not just, a long weekend, big vacations where they miss a week of school. And it's not just one kid; it's a lot of kids, and we get told to push things out online. Well, we know from COVID that's not the same thing. And we can put things out online, but more times than not, it doesn't get done until the kid comes back. And they have sewing classes, so they have all this work to make up. And most of the time, it's students that are struggling anyway. And so they just can't do it, which puts more pressure on the teacher to take the extra time to work with the kid who missed all of that to catch them up. But attendance is a huge issue. It's hard because I see one side of it and they see another side. And so when the family says, okay, we need to take this vacation because I got a good deal, or this is the only time I can take off work, or whatever. Okay. But then you need to double down and make sure the kid gets the work made up, make sure the kid understands what's going on. Don't just throw them back in school and say, oh, the teacher will take care of it. So there, just like when I was talking about before about balance, families need to balance too. I understand the need for family time. I understand, the schedule's working out, the kid missed the bus. You need to take care of younger siblings. I understand that. But then you need to make sure that when the kid comes back to school, you make sure that they understand what's been missed. You take extra time, the teacher too, but help the teacher out. Take the extra time to get them caught up where they need to be. And I think in every family, every kid, every classroom, that looks different because reading and math, two total different things. You might be low in reading, high in math, or flipped. But I think part of that is attendance, because with math, you miss a couple of days, you've missed a whole unit. And it's a building block. Reading is too, but reading is a little bit more fluid than math.
So say you have a kid that misses a substantial amount of schoolwork on time. How would you advise the parent to reach out and make sure the student has what they need to get caught up?
Communicate. Susie did not understand the lesson. Can you please talk to her in class? Absolutely. Of course I can. Okay, I don't understand this lesson. Can you call me and explain what they're supposed to do? We're going to work on it tonight at home, but I really don't understand what she's supposed to do. Okay, sure.
So from a parent's point of view, when in your day of teaching would you have time to reach out?
I do it on my own time. When I am in the classroom, my focus is on the students. After school, I just mark out some time, and there is a beginning and an end. I can't tell you what it is because it's different every time. If I know I have 5 parents to call, there's an hour. If it's 2 parents, it's a half hour or less. I trunk out that amount of time. And this is year 30. My family, they know. It's just what it is. But it has to be, in my opinion, on my own time, because I don't have a planning period, and my lunch, I have to have like a little moment for Becky.
So Becky, I know you're very humble. You don't like to brag, but tell me about some of your biggest accomplishments or most meaningful awards that you've gotten.
I think it was very humbling to be Teacher of the Year last year, because I don't think that I'm any different than anyone else. Like I haven't gone in any classrooms. I don't have time, but I don't see that what I do sets me apart from anyone else. The students voted Teacher of the Month, and when they said, I voted for you because you give me candy. And on face value, I was like, oh, that probably doesn't look very good. But then I thought about it and I thought, well, it's okay because one, I'm consistent. Two, they value good work because that's what they get it for, is when they get an 80% or higher. And so I'm training them to be hard workers and to work towards not perfection, but a good job. And this is just the avenue that I'm doing it. And so maybe they don't realize what I'm doing, and a lot of them probably don't, but that's okay. It's all right. Hopefully they remember more than just that. Hopefully they remember. And I have something on my wall that says in 30 years, all these things won't matter. It only matters what you learned. And hopefully they take that, not just, oh yeah, I remember Mrs. Brown, the one with all the candy.
I do have one more question. Do you
Okay.
have some go-to favorite resources that have helped you lately or along the way?
Um, Honestly, my biggest resources are my coworkers. Um, Standing in the hall before school, after school, whatever, I look around their classroom and I will say, oh, where'd you get that? Or what'd you do with this? Um, Obviously, Teacher Pay Teacher, Common Lit, the Scope magazine. But honestly, biggest resource is the coworkers because I'm nosy and I go in their room, and I've always done this. Always. I go in people's rooms and I look around, and um, I'll see something that, oh, I could use that. What did you do with this? And then I start thinking, okay, how can I incorporate this in my room? And, it could be a worksheet that's sitting on there on, I don't know what, atoms or something. And I'll think, okay, you guys are learning about atoms. Let me see. What can I do with that? Because in my opinion, that's kind of, so let me see what I can do with that to help you out, and help the student out understand it better. Maybe if somebody else says it too in a different way.
Well, Becky Brown, thank you so much for being on the show. I've truly enjoyed the time with you. Woke up this morning and I was like, what? There's no better way to spend a morning than with Becky Brown. So
Oh,
thank you. I appreciate it. And join the conversation if you're a teacher, parent, or just EduCurious. See you again soon.